So, good morning, everybody. Um, let's go ahead and share screen. There we go. So, a quick recap from what we did yesterday. So, yesterday we just wrote the equation of the function, or we just talked about the transformation. Today, I want you guys to be able to write the equation and show the manipulation of the equation. So the very first thing I want you guys to do is just a very, very, very quick recap. If I have an equation such as y equals the absolute value of the quantity of x minus 2 plus 3, can I get a volunteer? Somebody tell me, how is this moving? So what's this doing? Is it moving up, down, left, or right 2, up, down, left, or right 3? How is this affecting the parent function? Anyone?
The first section, it's moving right 2, and then the 3 moves it up 3.
Up 3, perfect. So just a recap, whatever's happening to x, it's always going to be the opposite. So we're going to start talking about the concept of vertex, what a vertex is. But your vertex is always going to be HK. In here, this is always the opposite. So we'll make sense of that here in just a second. So if I've got a minus 2, that's really moving it right 2. If I've got a plus 3, it's really moving it plus 3. Now, again, another volunteer, somebody else, what would have happened? What happens anytime I have a negative or an opposite sign in front of the absolute value? What does that do? And how do I say it?
Reflects over the x-axis.
That's exactly right. It reflects over the x-axis, or in other words, it flips it upside down. So I know that this is going to open down simply because I have a negative in front of the absolute value. Last thing, how would I say something like this? 1/3 absolute value of x. What's this 1/3 doing to it?
It's shrunk.
Say it again.
It's shrunk.
It's right. It shrinks it. It shrunks it. Or shrunks it. It shrunk it. So that means it's going to be wider. So it's going to look more like that. If this were like a 4 times the absolute value of x, now it's going to be a stretch and it's going to be a lot more skinny. It's going to look something more like that. That's all we did yesterday. Again, I know that this first couple days is pretty easy. It's supposed to be pretty easy. But let's go ahead and get started. So with that said, again, I'm making sure that you guys are with me. Now I want you, I said write a graph. I meant write an equation of the graph whose parent function is y equals the absolute value of x. So let's do this backwards. So if I start like this, sorry, that's a y. So if this is my parent function, in other words, what should go right here and what should go right here and or out here, okay? So take just a second here, and then just a second. I'm gonna give you guys more time than you need. I'm gonna give you about 2 minutes, and I want you to do these 4 questions on your own. Hi, Tegan, welcome. Tegan, if you could, just write hi in the chat so I make sure I mark you present. I'm gonna give you right at 1 more minute. I know that's probably more time than a lot of you need. And just trying to increase the level of interaction online, I've noticed it's just way too easy to kind of zone out, kind of go through the motion. So I'm going to be doing some cold calling today. And really starting with who I see on my screen. So the first person I saw was Laura Aiken. So Laura, if you want to unmute here real quick. So I've got y equals, and this is the parent function. So I'm just going to kind of spread this out a little bit. I can start this all here. So left 2, what do I do with the left 2?
It's -2 in the absolute value, like by the x.
Do right here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then what about up 3?
I said +3 outside of it.
Okay, now I'm going to open this up. So notice I just wrote down exactly what she said. Does anybody think that or have something different? Did anybody else write anything different?
It's actually +2.
Why is it +2?
Oh yeah.
You're trying to go to the left, and you have to do like the opposite.
Exactly. So it actually has to be the opposite. So just a reminder, and this is just touching on what we did yesterday, it's always going to be the opposite of what's happening to x. How you can remember that is your x's, your x-axis, I write it up here, the one that goes left and right, this is your x-axis, right? So the x is going to move it left to right. It's always the opposite. Every time we do a transformation, it's always the opposite of what's happening to x. So it's left 2, it goes in as +2. The k part goes right here. So now it's perfect, okay? And I hope nobody is too shy here, but I'm expecting some mistakes. That's how we learn. All right, next one. Let's go with, I see Keegan. So Keegan. So with that, what do you have?
Y equals x -5 -4.
Now, that's what you meant, right, Keegan?
Yeah.
Okay. Make sure that you say it like you mean it like you say it. So it's y equals the absolute value of the quantity of x -5 -4. Okay. If you would have taken out minus the quantity, I still would have gotten it. But make sure you guys put the absolute values in. So on your assignment tonight, kind of like yesterday, it's not all absolute values. It's making sure you understand what's really going on. All right. Number 3, let me change screens. Let's see. Let's go with Raylan. Number 3, first of all, reflected over the x-axis, what's that look like? And I'm going to put number 3 down here. What's it mean if it's reflected over the x-axis? What do I have to make sure I put?
A negative sign or a minus symbol.
Exactly.
Absolute value of x -1 +6.
Will somebody verify, is that right? Or did somebody get something different? Hank, what do you think? Is that right? Or did you write something different?
That's what I had.
Yeah, that's correct. So I'm just looking for somebody to verify. Well done. All right, and the last one, I'll put it right below it. So number 4, stretched by a factor of 4. So let's see, let's go with John Chastain. What do you have? Stretched by a factor of 4, left 3, down 2, put it all together.
So I have 4 times the absolute value of x +3 and then -2.
All right. And Zoe, is that what you have, or do you have something different? That's what you got? Okay. That's correct. All right. So any questions before I move on? Any questions? All right. Let me erase this. All right. So I was just talking about the concept of a vertex. Now that you guys understand what's going on, you guys can see, let me move this down just a little bit here. We don't have to make a table every single time to graph. In fact, that's going to be a much longer process to graph it. Instead, you should know what this looks like. So now that you know what a stretch is, what a reflection is, how it's being transformed left or right and up or down, we can graph this real quickly. Now, excuse this or pardon me for using some non-math talk here, but I want to talk very plain and simple. So if I'm reading this off, all of this is just information. And I'm going to start by this. Does anybody know, what does this even mean? This f of x, what does that mean? I need a volunteer. Somebody tell me, what does f of x really mean in plain, simple?
It's basically the y.
That's it. So this f of x is really just y. Okay? And what that's saying, the reason they write that, they're letting you know it's a function where x is your independent variable. So this is really just your y. This is saying the outcome depends on whatever you put in, all right? The output depends on the input. So that's basically just your y. So we can start with the vertex. Is this being stretched or shrunk or reflected over anything? No. And this x minus 1 means it's just moving what?
Right.
Right 1. And if I don't have a k value, my k value is 0, I can read off the vertex right away. It's just moving right 1, up 0. So it's already been transformed or shifted to the right 1. Now make sure that you guys watch this, you pay attention closely, because I was talking about the slope or the concept of slope with absolute value. So it's not been reflected. It's not been stretched or shrunk. So my slope here is 1. And remember that absolute values make v's. So up 1 over 1. And that's it. So graphing these really starts to get pretty simple. I want you to start to see these equations as information. Math really bogs a lot of people down until you see all of these expressions and equations like information right from the start. So that's it.
What did you put before the x?
So essentially this is it. So y equals, even though we don't see that 1 there, this is really what that equation is saying. So this is always going to tell you, and I'm going to put this here, this is always going to tell you your slope. Now, by slope, remember, absolute values make v's. So that tells me how much up and over I go from the vertex in both directions. So that's telling me my slope. This is telling me how far left or right. And this is telling me how much up or down. Okay, and that's it. Now, once you see just 2 or 3 examples, this really starts to get pretty simple. And I know I'm going kind of fast here. You can always rewatch this and fast forward to this part if you need to see it again. But let's look at the second one. So here's what you need to take from this. If I'm reading this off as information, and I'm going to say this not very mathematically, everybody sees this minus sign or this negative sign, right? To me, this means it opens down. So I know right off the bat, because of that minus sign, it's going to open and it's going to look like that. I know my vertex start, this minus 2 really moves it how?
Right.
To the right 2. So my vertex is going to be positive 2. It is always going to be the opposite of what you see here. Now I say always. When you guys get into pre-cal X, it's really what value of X makes the quantity 0. We're not going to have a coefficient for X inside the absolute value. So you can just know it like this, but it's really what value of X makes the quantity 0. And then this moves it down 3. So my vertex is just going to be 2, -3. So 2, -3. Any questions? Now, once you've got your vertex, now you apply your slope. Remember, this negative sign out in front is a reflection over the x-axis. This just means it's going to open down or having a slope of -1. And remember, absolute values make V's. There we go. So if and when we get to do this in person, or next time we do this, you guys should be able to look at this and just be able to tell exactly what it looks like. So once you understand the concept, this becomes very simple. Question so far? All right, so let's look at the next one. Take a second, try this on your own real quick. At the very least, make sure you know what it should look like. Can I have a volunteer? Can somebody tell me what's my vertex on this one?
Is it 0, like +4?
Exactly right. Again, it's 0, +4. So nothing is happening to the x. So it's not moving left or right at all, but it is moving up 4. So 0, +4. And then what's my slope? So -1/6. Does it open up or does it open down?
Down.
Down
Why does it open down again?
because it's
There's a
reflected
negative
over the
from
Negative slope.
absolute value.
Yeah, because there's a negative in front. And I heard a couple people saying that, and that's fine. I know you don't mean to talk over each other. So it opens down because the negative right here, is this being stretched or shrunk?
Shrunk.
Shrunk because it's a fraction less than 1. So how this looks when I graph it is down 1 over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And make sure absolute values make V's, so you have to run both ways. There you go. Okay. Again, once you practice this, it's pretty simple. Now, let's do this a little bit backwards. So write the equation from the graph. What I would do here is start with your vertex. Now, again, you guys don't have to draw this graph at all. I just want to make sure you understand where this is coming from. So you don't have to jump through really any hoops. I just want you to learn this. So I'm going to do number 1 completely for you. I start by identifying my vertex. Your vertex is where it turns, so it is -2, 1. My vertex is -2, +1. The next thing, and again, I keep calling it the slope. I realize it's not really a slope, but my slope from the vertex looks like it goes up 1, up 2, up 3, and over 1. And because it opens up, it is positive. So it is positive up 3 over 1, or just +3. Now, that's your slope. That's telling you what your A value is, okay? So how I write this is y equals, it opens up, so it has to be positive out here, absolute value of x. Well, let's see, it moved left 2, so this should be +2. Reminder, it is always, always, always going to be the opposite of that. And your k value is 1, you are finished. Any questions? So try number 2, and I'm not going to give you a ton of time, like 30 seconds. Just see if you can identify your vertex and your A value. And then take 30 seconds, see if you can write the equation. So can somebody tell me, what'd you get for the vertex? Any-
Oh, 0, -8.5.
For your vertex?
Oh, not the vertex. Sorry. 5, negative. I'm guessing that's 6.
It's 5, -6. And your A value, in other words, your slope, it opens down. So is it positive or negative?
Negative.
Negative. And it goes down 1 over 2 both ways. So -1/2. So put it all together. Do not forget the absolute values here. -6. By the way, so I'm going to throw a curveball. So I want you guys to pay attention. You have questions on your assignment that's making sure that you guys understand what this is saying. So on this one, what if I said that this is the equation? What if I said, I want to know the equation now what if I take this equation and from here, this graph, what would the equation be if I move it right 3 and up 7? So I'm already taking a transformation, but I want to move it again. I want you guys to think about this. What would my new equation be if I want to take that and I want to move it right 3 and up 7? You could either take this vertex and you could move it right 3, 1, 2, 3, and up 7 and go from there, or you could just add or subtract. So take a second and see if you can do that. Okay, so let's discuss, and I'm going to show you this the first way. A lot of people get confused with this the first time. So if I'm trying to further move this or shift it right 1, 2, 3, and up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, that's my new vertex. My slope did not change. So I could either come through and just write it with a new vertex, or somebody walk me through this. Let me change this to red. Y equals -1/2 x. What can I do with this -5 with the right 3? Then
Subtract 3 from -5.
that's right. Remember, so left and right is always going to be the opposite. So all I'd have to do is subtract 3 from this, and I could just write it as -8. So what about the up 7? What do I do with the 7 with the k value?
Add 7.
Add 7, which puts me at +1. So however you do this, you can go ahead and do the vertex. It's going to take you a lot longer. So to actually shift it, draw it out, or just know that your x value is going to be the opposite with the x's, and your up and down is your k value is going to affect the k value. Okay? Now, you see that on your homework. We'll talk about that here at the end. Take a second and try 3 and 4 on your own. By take a second, I'm literally going to give you guys about another minute and a half to do these two. And then I'll just write the answer up. Sorry, somebody's got some in the background. Could you mute your microphone here? Okay, thank you. About 30 more seconds and then we'll write up the answer here. I think I counted that right. All right, so I went ahead and I put the vertex for each of these. Again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Sometimes it's hard for me to see those. So the vertex is negative 5, 7. My A value opens down so it's negative, ran both ways 1. So if I'm writing the equation, it is going to be y equals negative 1. I don't need the 1. Absolute value of x plus 5 plus 7. Over here, I've got y equals, it's positive, it opens up. So up 2 over 3 both ways. So I'm not adding or subtracting anything. I don't need, and I shouldn't put a plus or minus 0. So just keep it like that. And the k value is how it is. Any questions?
How did you get a negative on the first one?
Yeah.
So the negative
negative
1 for A.
Yeah.
So do you notice that the vertex, that the absolute value of the graph is opening down?
Yeah.
So from the vertex, if it opens down, it has to be negative, and I went down 1 and ran both ways. So anytime that it opens down, your A value has to be negative.
Okay.
So always start with the vertex, or if you start from the vertex and you count, down 1, both ways 1. Okay? So if you start with the vertex and you go down, it's going to be negative. If you start from the vertex and go up, it's going to be positive. That's another way to think about it. Good question. Now, there's 2 more things we have to talk about. I want to be done in less than 5 minutes here, give you guys a chance to look at your homework. This last thing is going to be real quick. So I keep talking about reflections in the x-axis or over the x-axis. And today I told you we're going to talk about reflections in the y-axis. Now, you don't see this a lot. But to show a reflection in the y-axis, you change the signs of each of your inputs. Simply put, in other words, you change your coefficient of x to its opposite. So all that's going to happen is instead of outside, now the negative is inside the absolute value. So if this is my original equation and I say I want you to reflect this across the y-axis, literally all you would do, so if the negative were on the outside, it would flip it upside down. If it's on the inside, it changes the negative. So that's it. So it changes from this to this. Okay? That's the difference. Again, if you get confused, you can always make a table. The last thing I'm going to show you. Now, does anybody have any questions on that? I realize you might be writing this down. But this is kind of a minor thing, a reflection in or across the y-axis. I'm just changing the coefficient for x inside the absolute value. You do not see this a ton, but basically what's going to happen is if you've got that and your original function was like this, and I reflect it across the y-axis, now it's just going to look like this. Okay? Again, when we really get into that, that's going to make more sense. The last thing, and I talked about this yesterday, so you do have an assignment tonight, but I want to show you guys this. The very first question says this. I'm going to give you number 3. It says, if I have y equals x minus 5, and this, every year I've taught this, it throws people off. And it says, translated, 4 units left. Well, the book thinks it's doing us a big favor by starting easier, but notice there's no absolute values here. We talked about this 100% yesterday. So I want you to think about that, and then we'll talk about it one more time. So my y-intercept would be -5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and a slope of +1. So this is what it looks like right now. If I'm moving it 4 units to the left, then this would move 1, 2, 3, 4 units to the left, and my slope is still +1. So I could do it that way, but it's going to take it even longer. Remember, up and down here is the same as left and right. So this x minus 5, some people are saying, how am I supposed to know if it was down 5 or if it was right 5? It's the same thing in a linear equation. So if I'm trying to use this, move it 4 left, remember that's dealing with the x. It's the opposite, so all I'd have to do is add 4. So what's my new equation? Really? It's just x minus 1. So we hit on that yesterday. We talked about it today. We just then didn't do any of these exact examples. All right? Now, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. You guys do have an assignment. You've got 16 questions tonight. A lot of them are very simple. Like I said, I'm going to be kind of easy on this assignment, meaning if you have any questions, and I know that you're going to have questions. I don't love these first 2 assignments, I'll be honest. I don't love them. So if you have any questions, ask me the questions tomorrow during class. Write it down. We'll go over them. And I'll make sure that I'm a little lenient on this first homework, okay? So we've got about 8 minutes left in class. You guys, as far as I'm concerned, we are finished with this, so I'll stay on, see if you have any questions. All right.